Then second question, which is the last question for today. Nick, this one much shorter. It says we have a situation now where a joint incoming inspection was not done, right? Or which was not signed by the tenant. As I understand it, this is the viewer. As I understand it, no damages may therefore be deducted from the tenant's deposit, and the full deposit must be refunded. The question here is that the tenant is also now in areas with the actual monthly rental. Now, the actual question, may we deduct the area, may we deduct the area rental from his deposit? Or is it a case of because no incoming inspection was done, we're not allowed to deduct anything from the deposit? Nick?
Okay, so we'll first talk about deposits. Deposits are a very normal practice that occurs throughout leasing. Okay, it's one of the means of security that a landlord is entitled to use in order to secure non-payment or from the tenants in terms of their contracts. Okay, deposits, there are other forms of security that are used, but the deposit is the most common. Anyone who's entered into a lease probably has run into this experience. And so the deposit is a means of security that the landlord has to ensure that it can cover any costs that it might experience later down the road. Okay. Now, although there are a number of provisions that are set out within the Rental Housing Act with regards to incoming inspections, exit inspections, and how and what exactly you need to do on the part of the landlord when you are entering into a lease agreement. Okay, the deposit is not only a security for the damage that's done to the premises. The deposit is security for anything that may be payable by the tenant to the landlord in terms of the lease agreement. So that does include damage which is resulted from the tenant staying in the premises, and damage which may be found out as a result of outgoing, ingoing inspections. Okay, so it can cover that, but the deposit can just as readily cover your arrear rental that hasn't been paid, your utilities that hasn't been paid, or whatever other charges that might be levied onto the particular property, as long as you've included it within your lease agreement. So there is obviously, what they've indicated is there may be a problem with regards to the ingoing and outgoing inspections on the property. I don't want to specifically comment because I don't know the factual details of what exactly happened there and where they might or might not fall shy of legislation. And that's something I can't really comment on without having looked at the facts. But what the question is from the writer is, if there is, let's assume that there is a problem with the ingoing or outgoing inspections of the particular property, does that mean now that we're precluded from using the deposit for other amounts which might be outstanding? Okay, and the answer to that is no. Okay, if there is a problem with the ingoing, outgoing inspections, there are provisions within the Rental Housing Act which deem that the property is in a good condition when it is handed back. Okay, so it's very important for landlords to make sure they're up to date with that legislation, and they know that they need to do ingoing and outgoing inspections, because you will have a deeming provision that says that the property is in good condition if you haven't fulfilled the conditions of the Rental Housing Act. But that in of itself does not mean that the deposit is completely protected from use. And in particular, if there are other amounts outstanding, they haven't paid their rental, they haven't paid the utilities on your monthly statements, the deposit can still be used for those particular charges. And if they've been satisfied and then there is a portion which is left over, that portion might be protected by virtue of the act, and it might have to be paid back to the tenant in the circumstances. But certainly, just because there might be a problem with regard to inspections does not mean that your deposit can't be used for your arrear amounts in terms of the lease agreement period.
Yeah, thank you very much, then, Nick. That does bring us to the end of today's episode, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you to the agents, the viewers, and for everybody else to keeping the questions coming. And yeah, we'll see everybody again next week. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Thanks. Cheers.